Today I wanted to make a video discussing my thoughts on the Bitcoin Core versus Bitcoin Knots debate and spam on the Bitcoin blockchain, and kind of go into what both sides are arguing for. And I'm not going to say that this is going to be free from bias altogether and it's going to be a completely impartial look, because I've made my own conclusions based on the information that I've seen from sources that I trust. But I would just encourage you to study both sides of the argument, make your own conclusion. Don't trust but verify, and that goes for anything that I'm saying, anything that Bitcoin Mechanic or Bitcoin University or anyone else is saying about this. But I'm just going to share from my point of view and what I think based on the different arguments out there. So explained simply, it's a debate on a new version of Bitcoin Core software, which, if you don't know, Bitcoin Core is just a popular implementation of Bitcoin node software, and that makes up most of the network right now. This is different. There's different versions of Bitcoin Core, but there's a controversial proposed change that would be introduced in Bitcoin Core version 30. So Bitcoin Core version 30, set to launch in October 2025, is making a major policy shift, increasing the default op return data limit from 80 bytes to over 100,000 bytes per output. Basically, they're blowing the limit wide open for op return, which is a place to basically put non-financial data into a Bitcoin transaction. Previously, the limit restricted how much data you could embed in transactions, which kept the UTXO set cleaner and lighter. This update aims to align default node settings with what miners already accept, reduce the need for custom workarounds, and improve consistency, but it has stirred up debate over network bloat and decentralized trade-offs. Key changes in Core version 30, massive lift on the op return limit, like we discussed, which is currently 80 bytes. And just blowing that wide open, allowing multiple op return outputs. For the first time, the default rules permit transactions with more than one op return output. Breaking and deprecating configurability. The old data carrier size setting is redefined. It now allows vastly more data, and it's being deprecated. Legacy nodes relying on that setting could behave unexpectedly. So why this matters: pros, as simplifies defaults and avoids non-standard workarounds, reduces UTXO bloat from inefficient data storage methods. Cons, risks turning Bitcoin into a data repository beyond its financial purpose, could increase spam, slow node performance, and change decentralization. So people are arguing that this change to Bitcoin Core will allow a much more non-financial data and spam to be included on the blockchain. Personally, I'm of the argument that Bitcoin is money. Bitcoin is a monetary network. I don't want, large sets of data clogging the network with use cases that aren't financial transactions. I'm okay if I'm running a node. I want to be able to configure that and be able to exclude as many of these transactions as possible. And basically with Core version 30, they're taking a lot of that control out from the user and allowing people to increase the amount of arbitrary data within these op returns. A lot of their arguments are centered around the fact that these filters don't really work. These filters, they can be worked around, so let's just open the floodgates, basically, or that's how I've interpreted it. One of the analogies that I heard on one of Bitcoin Mechanics videos that made a lot of sense to me with breaking this argument down was just looking at like a fence around your backyard, right? So currently in Bitcoin, we have these fences, and these fences or filters basically decrease the amount of, not this non-financial data. And basically what Core is saying is that this fence doesn't prevent everyone. They're going to find a workaround. They could climb over the fence. They could put a ladder. So there's no point having the fence. We're just going to remove it altogether. And people on the side of Bitcoin Knots and the people against this kind of spam on the network are basically saying, no, the fence, it's not perfect, but it works. And it at least deters people from spamming the network with non-financial data, even though it's not a perfect solution, right? We could build the fence higher, we could use a better material, this and that, but Bitcoin Core is basically saying, no, we're going to remove the fence altogether. Having a fence is still useful, right? It still signifies to the world that this is my backyard, this is where it starts, this is where it ends. I don't want, everyone and their moms to just hang out in my backyard. I want this to be, my private area. I'm not delusional enough to think that this is going to keep everyone out of my backyard, and if someone really wants to enter my backyard, they could. But I want this fence here to indicate that I don't want people in my backyard. So that's kind of just my interpretation of this debate, and I think just the best, simplest way to break it down, in my opinion. This video from Matthew Kratter, Bitcoin University, is one of the things that kind of woke me up to this argument and made me want to dive further into it. So let's listen to a little bit of this video.
Really bad actors, but let's give a listen.
Bro, because they have a date, because Comcast users, because we have a list of basically NOTs nodes that advertise on NOTs, and then the users of Comcast have data caps at their house typically, and these are residential ASNs. They're not like the Comcast business blocks, and so.
Again, he's talking about attacking just residential node runners who are using Comcast in the U.S. These are people who are not part of the official fight. They just want to protect the Bitcoin network from spam, and he's somehow got a list of these people and is attacking their nodes.
Yeah, like I basically peering with them and asking for an IVD from a fresh node. Maybe I have like 96 of these nodes running right now because I want to get IVDs from all these clients. And sometimes
are they at least NOTs nodes?
No, they're core nodes.
Oh, come on.
They're actually master branch. But continuing on, essentially just like asking again and again and again, allegedly. So mechanic comes up in the space. At this point, I know it's kind of probably recorded, etc. So I was like, confirm or like he's like, do you formally confirm or deny that you're doing this? I was like, I kind of pussied out and I was like, no, I'm not gonna deal with this.
Anyway, you can listen to the rest, but in terms of people like Shinobi, Portland, Wicked, Rob Hamilton here, you should really think twice before interacting with them after seeing a video like this and seeing them laughing at something like this. Laughing when someone says that someone claims to be a Bitcoiner and brags about how they're attacking other everyday Bitcoiners. As Luke points out, be careful out there. The bad actors are now attacking individual NOTs nodes. And again, this is a vulnerability that NOTs inherited from Core, so it's not something that Luke did. But if you have data limits, pay a visit to the max upload target option in the GUI under options, go to network tab, try to keep upload traffic under however many megabytes per day. And I think you can only...
I thought that was pretty crazy. Basically, some of the Bitcoin Core developers and proponents were going out of their way to attack the home internet networks of people running the Bitcoin NOTs software on their personal computer. And to me, that was a huge red flag for some of these people that are advocating for this change to the software. And, again, I'm not saying I'm free from bias here. I wouldn't say I'm, going out of my way to really understand their argument and where they're coming from. But things like this are not helping their case and making me want to understand where they're coming from when they're openly attacking people who run a different implementation of the software. And that kind of tells me all I need to know about these people and whether or not they're good actors and want to see Bitcoin succeed and be used as freedom technology and be used to separate money and state. I don't know these people, I don't know their intentions, but to me, this is a big red flag and really put me off to hearing their side of the argument on a deeper level. I'm not alone in this, and 18% of the Bitcoin network is already running Bitcoin NOTs nodes. So people are waking up to this and realizing that they don't want spam in their Bitcoin mempool, and they want to prevent that from happening, and they want Bitcoin to be used as money, not as whatever people are going to use it for by blowing open the op return limit. So I think this is great to see. It's great to see people, taking control and running Bitcoin knots, using their implementation to basically vote for what they want Bitcoin to be. And I think that's what makes Bitcoin so great. And I'm really thankful for the people who are, speaking up against this and speaking up for what they believe in. And just seeing this already at 18%, I think is great. I think we can continue to get that higher. And yeah, so that was a little bit of my interpretation of the Bitcoin Core versus Bitcoin Knots debate, my thoughts on it. And yeah, again, do your own research and make your own conclusions. But I do believe from what I've seen that there are some not so good actors within the Bitcoin Core community, but do with that information what you will. But I personally will be running a Bitcoin Knots node and using my vote in the Bitcoin implementation. Wanted to give a quick shout out to Sats Arcade. Sats Arcade is a platform I built that lets you play games and earn some sats on the Lightning Network. There's some really fun games here. My favorite is Bitcoin Asteroids. You can compete on the leaderboard and win some of the weekly prizes by placing in the top X of players. And if you want to get some Bitcoin for yourself, my personal recommendation is River. If you're in the US, if you use my referral link down below, we'll both get some free Bitcoin when you make a purchase. I've helped multiple businesses launch and integrate Lightning payments. So if you want to launch your business, I can help you build a website with Lightning Bitcoin payments enabled, or I can help you introduce Lightning payments to your existing business if you need any help with that, as well as any other Bitcoin needs, Bitcoin questions, things like that. I'll leave an email down below and the link to this website if you want to check it out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, just leave a like, subscribe. That helps out the channel a ton. And as always, together, let's work, save, and build a brighter future with Bitcoin. See you in the next video.